The conversation has officially moved past chatbots. The industry is becoming obsessed with AI agents, systems that we don't just talk to, but actually execute tasks. This week in the tech world, it was reported that agentic work will have a 90% adoption this year alone in the workforce. That's a pretty big number, and that's pretty widespread adoption as well. Some of it may be personalized to that company. Some of it, there are already existing SaaS products a company might be using as well. Either way, it is definitely on the frontier in how people work. We'll try to talk about it a little bit more today. My name is Alexandra Craig, and I'm joined with fellow tech lovers and gurus, Lisa DeNoia and Jeff Werby. We, along with a brilliant team across the country, make up Court and Starboard based on the East Coast in Virginia Beach. You can learn more about what we do in the show notes, but if you keep listening, you will learn soon enough that we love helping businesses run better with technology. So today we are talking about the shift of talking to AI to delegating to AI and this concept of agentic work or agents. Lisa, I would like to start with you. Do you think there's going to be a psychological hurdle in a sense of letting go of the wheel? Do you think the workforce is going to be hesitant to adopt this, or do you think it's going to be hard to adopt an agentic concept rather than just chatting with ChatGPT?
It's a good question. I think it depends. I mean, there are plenty of companies out there and industries now where they're using systems with automations. Some of them have very complex automations, and I think this agentic approach just gives us a different way to automate processes, and perhaps we can automate processes that function a little bit more the way that humans function, and we can make way for exceptions in processes when we do these big technology implementations. We're always designing towards the best case scenario, and then we're trying to handle exceptions without making the project go off the rails or blowing the budget out of the water. And so I'm curious to see if we can start using agents to more easily create escalation rules or, handle exceptions in processes that have been traditionally very difficult to handle in, Salesforce automations or ERP automations or just these, automations that we build to run on systems and databases now.
Hmm. Hmm. Jeff, you've been playing around a ton with agents. You have a whole workforce built out, actually, in fact, and I believe even a manager of your agents. Can you share briefly a little bit? What are you doing right now in your daily work by utilizing agents? What's kind of been your experience in the past few months doing that?
Yeah, so I've built out a team. They're great. Some of them have been known to be lazy, so I've got them now. I'm giving them breaks so they don't work 24 hours a day. They get to take coffee breaks in the break room, and they drink Fathom coffee when they're in there. But I I started with some very easy, low risk activities that I did on a daily basis, and I gave them the opportunity to watch me do those tasks and then to attempt to do them on their own. I gave them feedback and they learned, and there was a continuous loop where they learned how to improve to the point where they were able to fully execute on the task. With the low risk ones, I let them just go and do what they needed to do. With other ones, there's a stopgap and there's a human in the loop. So when I was in the military, there's certain systems that, depending on what's happening, the system is ready to go, but it's waiting until a person pushes the fire button. And so these things will just wait. They'll ping me, send me a message on my phone and say, hey, here's what I'm about to do. Um, is it okay? And I'll say, yes. And so things like, well, I'll give you a really good example. So we use at the coffee shop, we use the Square point of sale system. And about 2 years ago, Square broke their ability to do automation with our payroll, and never was able to figure it out. I even messaged the CEO of Block. I tried to get people on the phone, and just for whatever reason, they were unable to do it. And so for the past 2 years, every payroll, I've been going in and doing the payroll and then telling it to print out checks and then breaking those checks that come out as PDFs up into individual PDFs and then uploading them to Mercury, which is an awesome bank. If you don't use it, you should. And upload those into there and then take each person and map it to the payment. And it was, it took me I'm pretty quick with this stuff, but I mean, altogether it was probably an hour process if I didn't have any distractions. And so now I go in and I look at the payroll and then they do the rest. So they actually are looking at things like, are the timesheets complete? Do they have, for some reason, did they not clock out? And so it automatically clocked them out the next morning. And then it gets to the point where it says generate payroll. And so then it asks me, do you want to do it? I go into the screen, I look at it, do a quick once over, I hit submit. And then from there, it takes over and it downloads the PDF. It splits the PDFs up into the separate files. And then it goes and it uploads into Mercury. And then it asks me, do I want to continue? But then, and it recommended this, it said, hey, there's a step that we're doing that requires browser access. Mercury has an API. Can we come up with a process to be able to upload the ACH file through the API? And so we prototyped it and tested it. And then I saw that they went into Mercury as to be paid. Everything looked good. And so I said, go ahead and do it. And so I just actually ran payroll and it didn't take me any time. I just looked at what it did. And then it got to the point where I said, I believe the command was at the end, I think I just said, process all payments. I had to type it in. So I've got those things where it says like you confirm and it's always in bold. So
yeah, that human element, right? You've been talking about that, the past few weeks is you want to put human element into these processes. You want those poke-yotes, those stop gates. So, I just read last week on LinkedIn that somebody had, and I was trying to do investment banking with it and had pulled like $3,000 out of their agents pulled $3,000 out of their account because they'd given them open access and did not make any money off of that $3,000, right? So you want to put human elements there or commands so that's not happening.
Right.
I'm assuming you didn't start with payroll, right? You didn't. Your agent's first task was not running payroll for the coffee shop, or was it?
I mean, I've been playing around with Agentic and AI tools for quite a while. One of the first things that I did was I'm really bad at I guess cleaning or organizing my downloads directory. And so the first thing I did was I wanted to have some kind of organization and store things and find those files that I didn't need, like DMG files or ISO files or any kind of files that I could easily go and download the latest one from the vendor. And so I set it up to go through and look for those, find all of the coffee labels because we still print them and I still do the printing sometimes. And finding them when I needed to they were just all in there. And so I did a lot of scrolling. And so I just had it organized. I said, find me all the coffee labels, find all the things we could delete, find all these, text files and downloads that come. And so, yeah, that was like the first thing that I did. But then I got to the point where I said, okay, I really like what they're able to do. I had it clean and augment my contacts from my iPhone, through Apple Contacts. And then just, started giving them tasks. And then I'd say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do for the day. Here are the things that I do. Here's the things that I do repetitively. What can you do to make my life better? And it came up with some good ideas, including for me to take breaks.
Yes, that's probably a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Lisa and I were talking yesterday. So you had mentioned printing, right? Some of these low risk, typically couldn't even fall in an admin bucket tasks.
Right.
And Lisa and I were talking yesterday about, the frontline worker in a sense. I know that's a manufacturing term. I have a manufacturing background, but your admins, right? Your entry level, your interns, right? Those tasks we often hand off to those folks. Those are a lot of things that in this, early entry can be put into agentic systems and agentic workflows.
Right.
And it made me think, are we going to enter back into a world of shadow IT, right? Where we have folks who all of a sudden have access to build their own. And are they going to start building these agentic workflows and connecting systems? Are we going to see, almost a reemergence of a wild west of unmanaged automation that the IT departments don't know about or can't control? I think, Lisa, this is a good one for you to talk about because you intersect a lot of tech and then people and the management of the two. I mean, but we talked a little bit, but what are some more thoughts you have on that concept of shadow IT and agentic?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because as you're creating these agents, and like Jeff's example is great. I mean, he's created agents and they have names and they have profiles and they specialize in different things. And I've started doing that now too. And so I'm trying not to humanize them too much, but I almost think of them in an org chart. And then it makes me think, well, is there a difference between company agents and then people's personal agents? Do we have company agents that are port and starboard agents? And how do we collaborate with those agents? Do we put them into a library and check them out and use them one at a time? They all need the same context to operate. So, how are we, version controlling the documentation or the information that we're giving to those agents to run? And then if each employee has their own personal agents that they're running either on their computer or in Claude or in ChatGPT, how are we regulating what information is okay for employees to share with their agents, right? There are certain platforms that I would not want our team uploading client data into if people are running agents on their personal machines. In the past, we've said, hey, like, don't keep client data on your personal machine. If you lose your machine, like, that might not be the best place for it. Now, it's like if you're trying to run these LLMs on client data, then your machine might be the safest place for it because we certainly don't want to be uploading client data to ChatGPT or Claude necessarily. And so, yeah, it's kind of like I think of it as, is each employee amplified or augmented by their own team of agents that can help them in what they do? And is there also company agents that are doing company tasks and then maybe certain employees are interacting with them at certain points in the process? I think it's going to end up being a hybrid of both because
Yeah.
I think to some extent, um, these agents are going to become an extension of the humans that create them. And it will become difficult to ask somebody to come to work and do their job without their
Mhm.
agents because they're going to become dependent on them. And if they have access to them in one role versus another role, then, and then I think that'll also be interesting when it comes to like job interviews. Like if you come to
Yep.
work with a certain number of agents, like, and then it's, who owns the work of those agents. If
Mhm.
the agents live on your personal computer or live on your work computer, it opens up a really interesting can of worms.
It does. It does. I saw a term this week, BYOA, bring
Bring
your
your
own
own agent.
agent.
Yeah.
And I love the term because Lisa, you and I had a conversation earlier this week, and I was talking about a problem solving agent that I was building out on my personal machine. And I've been feeding it chapters and highlighted parts of books that I've read that I like the problem solving method used. And in hopes to, sometimes when you're in the midst of a problem, whether it's business or tech or even human problems like relationships, it's hard to remember the framework that you've, gone to in the past to solve a problem or for a client. And so I was hoping if I could build something out that maybe doesn't have emotions attached to a problem, it can solve the problem a little bit more clear quickly for me. But that's on my personal machine. Will I utilize that for work? Probably once it's, worked out. And so it opens up that concept of how is that going to look in just even a year time, especially people in tech space when they are being hired or moving companies or moving departments? Their knowledge is no longer just what's in their brain. It's now what's also been built into these self-learning machines and agentic flows and agents. um, I think it's really going to change the dynamic of hiring and your workforce development as well, and building your org charts, like you were saying, which will be really interesting to see. Okay, so we have just a few moments left. We will want to leave these casual and quick. We are going to talk a little bit about data next week, and something, of course, when you're building out agentic workflows and systems and utilizing agents, is they are pulling typically from data, right? You have to feed it data. They have to learn from things. They're accessing information. We're seeing our clients tie AI into their sales forces or their other existing CRMs and their databases. And I'd read a quote this week that we don't want to try to drive Ferraris through swamps, and swamps in this case would be messy data. A lot of agentic workflows may fail. And the number one reason of that is probably going to be because they are building it on already existing broken processes or utilizing a lot of messy data. We're going to talk a lot more about this next week, but Lisa, data's like, one of your specialties. It's something you love. Probably you may be the only person on this planet that gets really excited to go into a database and like fix it and just can visualize it in 10 seconds. Where do you see the landscape going with, data and agentic work or agent work? Do you think that's going to hit a roadblock that people aren't expecting? Or maybe what are some things that people should be thinking before they start down this journey of implementing AI and agents specifically with their current data setup?
I think that whether the data is a mess or the data is clean, there's one more important factor that I think 99% of people using AI right now are underestimating the amount of clarity that these tools need to actually perform the actions you want them to perform, or if what you're asking them to do is go into your data and analyze your data and bring back reports. I think there's this false perception that people can just go analyze my revenue for me and tell me what to do more of to make more money, right? Or go make me a report of, this. So we do a lot of work for insurance companies, and some of them have IT departments, some of them have data analysis roles, and I think there's still this learned vocabulary that happens between humans that I think AI is maybe it'll be able to do it someday, but I still think it needs a level of clarity that humans don't always need, right? We have this like culture, slang, vocabulary, things like that happen over time. And so I know that when the CEO of an insurance agency says, show me home and auto policies, that means, well, that might be home, renters, condo, whatever. But if you just go tell the AI to run you a report on home policies, it's probably only going to bring back less than a third of your data because it's looking specifically for ones that are labeled homes. It's just one small example. And I think this problem exists today, right? If you have a data analyst or a data team and you give them the wrong instructions, they're also going to bring you back the wrong results. And then you're going to go back and forth, back and forth. The challenge that's happening with AI right now is it's just happening more quickly. People are able to make these mistakes so quickly, and people are firing off PDFs of charts and answers to questions. And then all of a sudden you have 3 answers to the same question before anybody realizes that they have a problem. And so I think clarity is going to be important. Defining your data for these systems, right? So having a data dictionary that AI can refer to so it understands what you're asking. Because same thing, if you're asking it to automate a workflow and you're asking it to update fields, you have to be very specific about which ones you mean. You can't just say update the date and then it turns out you have 16 dates that you're storing in a system. And so, some of this is going to be about cleaning up the data, the existing data. Some of this is going to be cleaning up the systems. Where do you have redundant fields? Where do you have technical debt that has accumulated over time where it didn't really matter, right? In Salesforce, a lot of people will say, oh, it doesn't matter. We're just going to keep it just in case and take it off the page layout. Well, the agents aren't looking at the page layout, right? The agents are looking at the back end. And so where can you eliminate confusion? And I think like decluttering the systems is going to become important as we move forward.
Yeah,
And
very much agree.
the thing that you were talking about yesterday, being, and I don't really know if it's an actual term, but a prompt engineer, and being able to tell it what you actually intend, but also working within the context window, because an agent can't analyze all of the data in an org. Even though it'll come back with an answer, it can only do a fraction of it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's what you just said, Jeff, is so important. Lisa, you had wrote an article, and I'll link it in the show notes, earlier this week. It talked about their direct, like your offshore development team you may have already been working with, right? If you say change it to blue, they're going to change it to blue, but it might not be your company's hex code, right? Like that kind of detail. And if anyone is scrolling on any platform, whether that's LinkedIn or Instagram right now, the algorithm is feeding you, top 10 prompts to give your agent. This will make you more money. Utilize this. It'll change your business. I make $1 million a month now. I retired my wife, right? All of these catchy things. And when you just said, look at my revenue sheets and tell me how to make more money, that you're not going to get the answer that's going to actually drive your business forward or be beneficial, right? It doesn't have enough clarity, and you're not defining that data, and you're not utilizing that agent to its full extent. And so I
right.
think just really important things to remember as people are shifting through almost an overwhelming amount of information, and speed of these concepts and this new technology, but wanting to actually make an impact on their business so that it actually reduces the workflow and doesn't just add to it as a new piece of technology to add to the bundle.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
as we move forward, people are going to realize that telling these agents or just telling AI tools in general what not to do or what you don't want, right? There's a lot of conversations happening right now about judgment, human judgment, and taste, right? Like judgment and taste is about refinement and understanding what you don't want. If people are building applications and they're building websites with these brief prompts like make me a website that does da da da, well, it's going to make you a website, and it knows that websites have like headers and hero images and buttons and whatever, and so then it pops up a website and you're like, oh, it hallucinated all this stuff. Well, it didn't. If it's hallucinating, you're not giving it enough information. If your AI tools are hallucinating at this point writing code, I would argue that that's because you're not telling it enough of what you don't want.
That's a really good point. Cool. All right. Jeff, Lisa, do you all have anything to add to this agent conversation today? I'm sure you do, but at
Really
least
good
for
to
this
talk about this
25
next quarter,
minutes.
so we can come back next week.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you both. We will be talking a bit about data and AI in general as a more holistic landscape next week. And we hope you join in that conversation with us. Thank you so much.